Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast, a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. I wanted to talk to you about what's going on in terms of graduations, in terms of residency, and then in terms of the job market. So first of all, with graduations, I know experiential offices around the country are working so hard to try to find spots for these students to go. And what you want to do is you want to help them out if you are a P4, and I'll talk about P3s in a second, or pre-final years, the P4s, and figure out what you really need. So if you're going to a residency in another state, what are the requirements for the number of hours that you need? Do you really need 5 weeks in this last time? Do you need 4 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is? That's something you really can help the experiential office with, because while they might be experts in their own state, they're not going to be an expert nor really know where you're ending up. So if you're doing residency in another state, help them to help you, and make sure you kind of contact the board or look up what you can, or talk to the residents who are there and say, hey, what do I really need? And that way you can work out a plan with the experiential office. I think this is going to go deep into summer. I don't necessarily think that the very first thing hospitals are going to do is say, okay, well, let's get the students back in here. I think there's going to be some kind of time frame in between. And I think you want to really look at your first block and say, okay, is my first block acute care? Traditionally, it's not, because you really want to have at least an internal medicine before acute care. But even then, are you going to be able to get into a hospital to do that? They're putting up the blast shields at one of the major pharmacy chains, and I expect all of them to follow suit. That personal protective equipment may not be there, but certainly the blast shields will be there, and they just know that it's really unreasonable to expect a drive-through only, just because there are so many people that come in terms of how many prescriptions are filled and things like that. But do know that that's happening now. In terms of what you should do, I think many of you are kind of seeing it on the front lines. Those of you that are currently interns, and you're seeing that, hey, this is really scary. This is maybe not what I signed up for when I first started. And you're really seeing how much pharmacists are really an essential kind of part of the equation, where we're all open, and maybe the front door's not open, but the drive-through is open, or we'll bring the prescription out to you. And I think that's encouraging for this year and graduating this year, because I think if you would have looked 4 weeks ago and looked at what the job prospects were, I would have been very concerned. But now, as we're kind of looking forward, and you see that Amazon and Walmart together will add 250,000 jobs, CVS 50,000, and then another 10,000, I think, at Walgreens. And I don't know what those positions are going to be, but there is certainly a surge. And while there's mass displacement, I understood that GM just shut down, and 3% of the restaurants have closed to never be opened again, and then another 12% expect to have the same thing happen to them. So maybe instead of, like I waited tables when I was in pharmacy school, maybe you've been displaced, and maybe things are a little bit up in the air for you. But there are opportunities out there right now that are coming out. And there are shutdowns, though, and there are certain places that just can't be open, but that will be open very soon. And so it's just a matter of kind of navigating this as best you can. I definitely lean into the Your Financial Pharmacist team as far as keeping up with the finances, and also studentloanplanner.com. Both of them put out together, I think, a great kind of pairing of information if you have loans and things like that. As for residency next year, the real concern is, are you going to graduate on time? If you're graduating on time, all is hopefully well. In terms of cost, generally the residents are put in the budget. That's already taken care of. Where you might have a concern is the rural hospitals. I don't know how much of the stimulus they're going to get, but I just know that the rural hospitals really depend, and maybe you didn't know this before you were applying, but rural hospitals depend on elective procedures as a way to survive. And those elective procedures are being put by the wayside, so the money's not coming in. Now, telemedicine is becoming huge, and there are certain things that are happening with that. But I think that rural hospitals would be the ones where I would really be concerned. I think the academic medical centers, the large urban centers, those are going to be going into the parking lots very soon. So there's certainly an expansion there. It's just, anyway, that's something that I would definitely watch out for. As for those of you who are graduating residency or graduating and not going into residency, I think there are opportunities that are going to be out there, and it's going to be a matter of really connecting with other people, whether it's through, I know the APPE is going to have a virtual meeting, which I think is like $250 relative to the actual cost of the meeting, which is 1/10 of that. And I know that when you talk about ASHP, they've put up Connect, and I think that it's important you start connecting with other people as you kind of move towards graduation. I know there are going to be a lot of questions coming out of there. Last thing I want to kind of address are the P3s, or those that are going into rotation. Because I think this will go into summer, your IPPEs and APPEs are going to really be a concern. And the question is, why doesn't AACP do anything? Well, AACP is a member organization. That's like becoming a member of a gym, and the person at the gym coming to your house and saying how you need to work out at home or what your situation at home needs to be like. It's really ACPE, the accrediting body, that really has to kind of step up and say, hey, look, we recognize that you can't get hours right now, so we're going to need to be a little bit flexible until we kind of figure these things out. We are the third most populous country in the world, and we have already surpassed any other country in the number of cases that we have. Now, we are testing a lot, and that may or may not be why we're in that position. But I just know that it just seems that right now, because when you hear that what came out of Iceland, that so many people are asymptomatic, you don't know who has it, that the spread is all but assured. And regardless of where you are, it will double every 3 days. So again, in Iowa, we had like 20, 20, 20, and now we're at 50 something. And is that because of more testing, or is that because it's spreading? Is it because we're going to hit our peak? We've been on lockdown for a while, so it's not like we're all having mass gatherings and things like that. But we still do have the grocery stores open, the Home Depots, the Sam's Clubs and things like that. And we're pretty distant from each other in terms of, walking by somebody. But again, you're kind of, every time you go out there, you have no idea whether an asymptomatic person might have it or something like that. So what I really wanted to kind of bring this to is that there's a lot of us that are working behind the scenes to make sure that you can graduate, to make sure that you can get to residency, to make sure that your residency position is assured, and to make sure that there are opportunities for you afterwards. I think that you do have to be pretty mindful, especially if you have something like private loans or you refinanced and you're not getting the break that federal student loan borrowers have, or you went to a new pharmacy school and your loans will come due in November just like everyone else's, instead of having this kind of break. So to those people I say, you're going to want to talk to those experts, your financial pharmacist, studentloanplanner.com, and really get perspective on what you need to do. I get that it's a couple $100, and that couple $100 may be something you don't have, but it's just so critical that you understand the one thing that you need the most is just a stream of income. And anyone who's owned a business knows this, but cash flow is king. And to continue to move on, You got to keep the money coming in, or keep it from going out. And there are a lot of ways to do that. And these experts are able to tell you. I would never ever try to counsel someone on the student loans. Anyway, if you want to get a hold of me or talk to me, it's always TonyFarmD1 on Facebook if we're friends or you want to be friends, or AAGUERRA at dmacc.edu. That's D as in dog. AAGUERRA at dmac.edu. My school address is probably the easiest way to get in touch with me if you've got questions, or you can email me at tonythepharmacist@gmail.com. Either way, I'm happy to try to help you out if I can, whether it's concern about having to go to an APPE that you might be scared of getting coronavirus, or maybe you're trying to figure out what to do now that you're in limbo in phase 2, or whatever it is. Anyway, keep well. Hey, thanks again for listening to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast. I do encourage you to go to residencyhelp.com, get on the mailing list. I'll send you out an email every Friday during residency season, but then afterwards, I'll still have a number of episodes on helping you get through residency itself. And then if you're somebody that's looking at residency in the future, I'll also have content for that as well. If you have a question, I'm pretty good about getting back to you. And if I don't have an answer, I will know someone that does. So thanks again for listening to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please do rate and review. It really matters in terms of our ability to reach more people. Thanks again.